Hello, families, and welcome back to the lab. So glad to have you here today. Um, we've been learning so many wonderful things in our lab. And how do I see myself? Well, I see myself as someone who brings new hope to the education problem rather than just illuminating it and emphasizing that there is a problem. We all know there is a problem. I'm someone that's here to offer some of the solutions. And I believe that when you solve a problem, you should completely solve the problem, not just partially, not just part way, right? And so that's what a stronger foundation is potent at doing. We're good at closing gaps so that children can have a nice education that aligns them with their best version, their best self, and the opportunity to reach their highest potential and fulfill their dreams. I'm Dr. Small, Executive Director of A Stronger Foundation. Thank you for stepping into the lab. Remember, these conversations are unscripted. So I don't have something that I read. I have clip notes maybe to help me to remember points, but I don't really write it word for word and then read it off the screen. I'm literally, when you see me pause and start to search the air for the next word, if it was written down, I'd be better. But when it's written down, I don't feel like it's coming directly from my heart. So here we go. I was thinking about today, when someone is drowning, if you were witnessing a drowning and someone was out there in the water screaming, help, help, hands waving above their head, and they're just running out of breath and energy, right? It's hard to watch that. It's very, very, very hard to watch that. And I feel like anybody would jump in and try to help. But what if you cannot swim? Then you may not want to jump into that water if you cannot swim. It's not that you don't want to help them, but you can't swim and it's deep water, right? And so you're sitting there and it's breaking your heart. To sit there and just watch them is hard. But if you turn your head and just look away, then it's a little easier for you to deal with that. Because out of sight is out of mind. When you're not thinking about them drowning, I mean, you still know they are, but it's just still a little easier for you to deal with, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole point to the point I want to make in this podcast, in this episode. Yeah, we say that it's really easy to ignore when people are drowning. And if we cannot do nothing about it, it's just easier again to look away. And when we think about our children's education, see, part of the big problem that we're having is that everyone is accusing parents of not getting involved, right? Parental involvement. And that is true that it is the biggest or it's the best option for the solution is parental involvement. But a lot of times the parents don't know how to get involved. They know how to go to the book fair and help, volunteer their time there. They know how to go and volunteer bake sales. They know how to go to the pep rallies and those type of involvements. But in terms of the education side, for them to get involved and fulfill their role, they don't know how. I mean, parents really should be trained how to help the educator in their child's life. They are the main educator, but they do not know how. They're not the trained educator. So they're the main, but not the trained educator. And so I often say it's unethical for us as educators to say, you know what? If their kids fail, it's really their fault because we're doing our part. And we are. Okay, remember, we're really responsible for introducing standards and skills. And somehow that those standards and skills must be processed because that's the only way to get them into long-term storage. And remember, if it's not in storage, it cannot be recalled. And we're always wanting kids to recall, and show mastery and proficiency on exams. But whatever information has not been processed cannot be recalled. It's really that simple. And so going back to the idea that now when we think of drowning, the physical sense is one thing, but people drown in different ways. You could drown in stress. You can drown in anxiety. You can drown in on your job. You're overwhelmed. You're drowning, right? So when we think about kids, they're drowning in their education, just not being properly prepared. They have a whole ton of gaps, and they're drowning. Remember, we talk about that psychological death is just as bad as a physical death. Death is death. So if a child's alive, but they're psychologically dead, I mean, and even going as far as in the hospital, people that are, you see their bodies, they're breathing, but they're on a life-sustaining machine that's keeping them alive. But I mean, they're unable to function. So when we think about children who are drowning in their education, let's go back now to that same scenario where you have parents and you're watching the child drowning. How do I know that they're drowning? You're told, and I know teachers are stifled now. They can't really tell you the way they want to tell you, because then you're going to tell the principal that they shouted at you, or that they're showing, what's the other word, discrimination in some way. And so they can't hardly tell you the way they'd love to, but the child is drowning, education, academically, and you're watching it happen. And then after a while, it gets hard for you to watch. Because, come on, remember, Dr. Small, I evaluate. And when you bring your child to me and they're in 3rd or 4th grade and 5th grade, and during the evaluation meeting, I say to you, wow, they're unable to blend words, and they're reading at a kindergarten level. I don't even want to say kindergarten level, because what I see is that when those kindergarten skills are missing, just being able to blend words and understanding the different sounds that make the long A sound, the 2 E's together, the I and the E together, the E and the E together. When they don't master that and they're in 5th grade, they're having trouble with kindergarten material, unable to read them, stumbling over 3-letter words. So we know that they're struggling. And so it's hard for us to watch. You know why it's hard to watch. And when I sit down, it's because I'm trying to not get carried away and teach the whole lab in every single episode. But you know why it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch because it upsets you. It taps into your emotional center, your emotional control center, your limbic system. And it's hard to watch. And your hypothalamus is trying everything to regain homeostasis. Because when you start to worry, you're not at homeostasis. Your system's thrown off. And remember, the hypothalamus is going to keep trying. And the easiest thing to do, which is the entropy aspect of all of us, the easiest thing to do is just step back away from something. Just let it be. Just forget about it. Just don't think about it. Just pretend it's not there. It's not happening. And so, just like the person watching someone drowning turns away to help them handle it better because they cannot help. Parents are doing the same when it comes to their children's education. They're turning their head the other way. and just focusing on other things. Let's take the child. They like gymnastics. Let's take them gymnastics. I drop them off. They're excited to go. I pick them up. They have big smiles. They're happy. They might fight to leave, but the point is that we're going to pick those activities that's going to make our children happy. What was that neurotransmitter that triggers that happy feeling? Was it endorphins? Right? We like to see that because there's a thing called mirror neurons where, like when somebody yawns, oh, you find yourself feeling yawny. Yeah. So when your child goes into tantrum mode, they're expressing their disfavor and their emotional distraughtness, then it starts to impact the person that's watching. It's called mirror neurons. You look at them and they're bawling and crying. And even though they're not hurt and there's no real reason for them to cry, it's still your baby. And when our babies cry, we feel it all the way down. And it makes us cry, makes us hurt. We want them to be happy. We want them to experience that endorphin, the relief from pain and discomfort and feeling of well-being and pleasure. That's what we want them to experience. And so we relieve them from, sometimes the things we relieve them from, we shouldn't be relieving them from those things. Like a learning experience, we should not be relieving them from it just so they can experience endorphins, because then we're setting them up for failure in that way. That's not love. And so it's hard to watch a child struggling with education. So sometimes parents just you fought with the teachers for little to no homework, right? And homework is one of the best way to build a child, to build their education. Now, no one is saying, because I don't like to see when a child comes home from school, especially when they're in high school and they're taking those higher level courses, and then they come home and they're doing homework until like 9:30 p.m., 10 p.m. I don't like to see that. I don't. But at the same time, I understand, hard work pays off. You work hard now, they get to play later. I tell them that. You work hard now, you'll play later. Because the people that's working, ridiculously hard, sometimes it's because they're lacking the prerequisite. And every time, they go back to try and do a project, they're missing so many prerequisite skills. They have to work 5 times as hard before they even begin the process, the project. They have to do this overstudy. All right, and so the parents, you don't know how to help. You cannot swim. You cannot do the educational swim. And so you turn your face away and you allow your child to be submerged, because when you're not doing anything, they're sinking. And they're going deeper and deeper and further out in the water, in the deep water, where it's more dangerous. And here's where I sometimes rest when it comes to this. You see, it's one thing when we don't know a solution. But see, when we know a solution and we decide not to implement it, that's a whole different story. And when it comes to education, when we know what the solution is and we're pretending not to know, everyone's saying, oh, it's the milk, it's something in the water, it's just a generation. That's not true. You got people in the same exact generation growing up in a different kind of environment that is becoming brilliant just the same. Drinking the same milk, you don't have no different milk, it's the same cow. And if you know the solution and we choose to not implement that solution, that is wrong. That is unethical. Turning our face the other way. You see, in the case of the one that could not swim, so they wouldn't get into the water to save the person, they couldn't swim. They didn't have a lifeboat. They didn't have something to throw out in the water. But when it comes to the education, There are solutions. And it deals with supplemental learning. And so I say to people, don't keep acting like there's no way to save your child. Don't keep acting like you don't know that they're submerging. And the more they submerge, is the less prepared they'll be to be in a proper economic place later in life. And that's why we say, Dr. Small, your future child's best friend, because I know later on they'll thank me, because right now, there's no way a child could understand that the reward they receive from their parents from not doing extra reading on the weekend. I mean, you got your child sitting on the couch from sun up to sun down, not one book. Or if it's a book, it's the same book with the same exact story with words they have memorized. So there's no chance of improving on their vocabulary or learning anything new. And so we allow it to happen. I mean, that's not love. That is not love, no matter how we put it. So I want families to begin to own it. This is my part in the education solution. I want people to stop pretending that they don't know how to fix what's going on, how to prevent so many children from graduating, receiving that cute little diploma, and they're as lost as can be. They don't know which way to go. Some of them just go to college because that's what society says, but they have no direction. Second year in college, still have no clue. When all along they should have been taught about purpose in life, because that's the way you're going to prevent them from struggling and suffering and risking psychological downfalls and consequences if we don't align them with purpose when we are supposed to do that. All right, so if you don't know how to save your child academically, but you do know that there are sources. Now, most parents will think, oh, okay, I'll get a tutor. And a tutor is fine, but if they don't have an academic success plan, then you basically hired a duplicate of yourself. And I call certain parents, what we refer to them, if you look back in the overviews that you're supposed to watch before you start watching these regular videos, so you can understand all the science-based concepts that we may use. When you know that there is that solution, and I was saying about the tutoring, if you're just going to hire a tutor and they don't have an academic success plan, then you've hired someone that's going to still lead your child to mediocrity. They don't know where they're going, right? Tutors are great and they can fix, if you tell them to fix unlike fractions, they're going to fix unlike fractions. That's not enough to fix a problem, only to move on to another standard and allow that to fall on dry grounds. Okay? It's not going to grow. They're going to forget it, and you're going to be like carrying water in a bucket with holes. And don't forget, all the while, the child is wondering, what is wrong with me? Why can't I learn? Why do I keep forgetting my skills? Am I not smart? That stuff take a hold on them. It impacts what they try for. It impacts their self-efficacy, which is believing that they can succeed at the things they try. And when you get a child really early, in grades, kindergarten to second grade, that begin to experience failure and begins to embrace it, wrap their arms and legs around it and believe, this is who I am. I'm not strong. You won't believe how many children say to me, I'm not strong. They say, I'm going to tell you right away before I evaluate them. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not good at spelling. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not good at math. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not a strong reader. They heard someone say that and they have owned it. And their plan is to go through their whole academic career whatever grade they're in, they plan to go through next grade, next grade, next grade. Oh, I just don't do well at spelling. That's all. Yeah, it's okay. That's who I am. I understand. I embrace it. I own it. And when they say that to me, I tell them, don't ever speak that again. Okay, remember, you speak it, believe it, right? Because if you don't believe that you can win, you won't practice and you won't train. Why would you? Okay, so parents, you know the solution. The solution is a supplemental learning program. Again, not some random tutoring. I love when parents reach out to me. And if you have reached out to me, at least you can back me up in saying that Dr. Small is not just after everyone. Everyone may not belong to us. You know that if you've come to me, I've said to you after looking at your evaluation output, I have said, this child might perform better with this program or that program. And I've literally sent parents to other learning institutes that I feel like was a better match. I do that. There's a lot of them out there. And if they specialize in an area, I'll tell the parent exactly where to go. I investigate other programs, learn about them so that I can align families with the right program. A lot of times we're able to help, and a lot of times we're the best option, but it depends on what the parent wants. Any parent who wants to completely close their children's learning gaps, we're always the one. But you do have families that says, well, because of money, we're going to just stitch. You know what stitching means, right? Like when you have something that's ripped and torn, you have the option to stitch it. Stitching is not the same as properly fixing it, right? So you can stitch it and just maybe use some safety pin and attach it, but it's not the same as bringing it back to the seamstress and having them put it back through the threading and just properly fix it properly. So we have a lot of parents that wants to stitch. We're not stitchers. We're fixers. We're going to eliminate. We're eliminators. Ooh, right? Terminators is what we are. We're going to terminate the problem. We are not going to leave a little small opening where it can easily be, reaggravated and starts to bleed again. We're going to completely terminate, eliminate, and we're going to resolve. We're going to restore. That's how we fix. We don't believe in stitching. And so I want parents to own it. Let me just make the turn right now. I want parents to begin to own it. I don't want you saying, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of the drowning. At least own it. I understand you're turning your face because it's easier to deal with it. But later on, when your child grows up and you see them struggling, in fact, I want to ask as parents, I want you to think about your adult child right now. One that's graduated from high school, whether they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and let's go all the way up to 27 or 30. And you're looking at your child. Are they snuggled into their dream career, their ideal purpose? And if you say yes, good. But you know what ideal purpose means to us. But are they doing that? Or are they walking around your house, still cannot leave your house, sleeping in late, constantly hitting the snooze button, locked in the room all day? Whatever job they end up getting, they end up being fired. They can't commit to it. And we're saying, oh, it's just a generation. And they're just unprepared. They're just unprepared. But you're looking at your children right now. And the reason why I asked you to look at them is not so you can say, boy, Dr. Small, you sure got it right. No, I want you to consider your role in what you're looking at. How could you have created a better opportunity for them so that it's not that they just want to be doing that, they're lost. The chance that we had to fix what was wrong, we were busy saying that, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix. You see, I believe when we create the problem, we should be willing to fix it. And the problem was created when we didn't read to the fetus. The problem got worse when in kindergarten and preschool, the teacher says, listen, they're having trouble with these phonics um, items. And we ignored it. We're like, they're in kindergarten. How serious can it be? It was serious enough. Hindered them, restricted, it created an obstacle and limitation. And now they're moping around the house and you're yelling and screaming at them when, well, we had roles in this. We have a role in it. We could have made the difference. We made a choice. And sometimes I wonder with that choice, why did we make the choice? When they were very little, why did we not send them to a stronger foundation? Well, I know why. Well, I know why. Because any form of supplemental learning, no matter where the place is, parents want to dictate how to close those learning gaps when they don't know how. And so when this adult child starts to struggle, and what you're seeing now, if you don't have children, look at the neighbor next door. You know that child. Look at some of the young people in your church, right? They're bouncing around, don't know what to do, can't leave home because they have no direction. Remember, you don't leave your house unless you have an idea of a destination, like where you're going to go. People don't just walk out of a house and don't know where they're going. You know, if you're going for a walk, you're going for a walk. You know, you might be going left or right. If you're going, you know, you have an idea what you're doing when you get up and say, I'm going out. But we're leaving our kids with no direction. And so what we're looking at is our fault. Okay? That's the first step. If you're an alcoholic, they like when you, I think the first thing they want you to do is to own it. I am an alcoholic. I want parents to begin to admit their role in what they're seeing now with children that's unable to leave your house or they're just lost. Come on, look at them, right? And when they start to be denied opportunities, you know, a lot of times we like to blame something else or complain. And remember, in one of our episodes, we say we're not going to complain and blame anymore. And even if we insist on blaming and complaining, at least we still have to simultaneously train. So instead of complaining alone, let us complain and train, right? Train our children. We have to spend that money, whatever it costs. Okay. So when you see that they're passing up for opportunities at work, what was your role in that? Because you know what they're going to say. Oh, it's because I don't look like them. We start to blame irrational ideas and elements and entertain irrational thoughts about why we are not achieving. You see, we want to prepare ourselves for mediocrity and somehow achieve greatness. That's what we want. We want to prepare ourselves to be at the bottom and somehow a miracle at the top. And that's, again, being Christian. I know I can only speak for that. That's what I am. And I know a lot of times we like the prosperity messages because it starts to play with our limbic system and starts to give us false hope. Because as much as we can be blessed, you know, you're never going to be placed in an opportunity by God that loves you when he knows you can't handle that particular position. Right? Some of us wouldn't mind living in the White House, but are you qualified to operate the functions in whatever role you're put in? I mean, we have to be honest with each other. I wouldn't want to be put in a position that I cannot handle. I would love the money. I want the money, yes. But if I cannot properly satisfy the roles or the requirement of that position, then it's only going to hurt me. And so the child that's struggling, I feel now, one, I want parents to own it. Okay, as we're coming toward the end of our episode. I want you to own it. Your role in your child, whether they're adult children now or whether they're still in just fourth and fifth grade, and you're seeing their struggle, especially if they just went to middle school, you're seeing it more than ever. They are unable to self-regulate. They're unable to handle it. And you were told in elementary school when they were distractions, when the teacher called you in and you said, well, maybe it's your fault, teacher. Maybe you just don't know how to operate a class. Maybe you just don't have good class management skills. And that's what you're saying to teachers, instead of realizing it's not about that teacher. That teacher is already an adult. You know, instead of realizing, okay, whatever this teacher is saying, I better take it seriously, because in 5 years, if your child is in fifth grade, in 5 years, what grade are they going to be in? Are they still going to be this cute little, bubble mouth that we talked about, smiling? And no, they're going to be in a different developmental stage where they can't stand to be around you sometimes. I know a lot of families, that's what happens when the kids start to grow up, because the child begins to be resentful. You don't realize, you think that when they're young and then they're in second and third grade, and you think that you're saving them from working hard, and because they're so happy, you're catering to their endorphins. But see, as they're growing up, they need those same skills that you're protecting them from. They need it to succeed. So when they start to experience great failures in the upper grade, because they don't have the foundation that you saved them from, you protected them from. I mean, it's what they wanted, but of course it's what they want. Because remember, their emotional their emotional control center, the limbic system, is more advanced, and it matures faster than their rational executive control center. They're not able to think rationally. So when a child, and you won't believe how many parents, when I speak to them and they say to me, when we talk, and I pour my heart out when I speak to them, and I tell them, this is what you got to do. And then they say to me before they leave, they say, okay, I'll talk to the spouse. First of all, they say that, which usually when you say that, I know right away, you're thinking, okay, it costs more than $2. We're not doing it. And then they say to me, well, if she likes it, if he enjoys coming, it's something that we will consider. And I say, how cruel. How is your child going to be able to know what's best for them? Do you give them the car keys when they're 3 years old too? Because they like car keys? And so you're going to let them drive your car because they think your car is good and they enjoy driving your car? You're going to give that to a 3-year-old? You're not going to do it, because you know they're going to die, right? And in the same way, if it's a sharp knife, are you going to allow your toddler to play with a sharp knife, knowing that they're going to cut themselves up and possibly fall onto it? You wouldn't do that, no matter how much they like it. In the same way, when it comes to immunization, whether or not your child enjoy getting shots, it's good for them. Or I know some people don't believe in it, so that's fine. We're talking about the majority that will get immunization. You don't sit there and say to your child, okay, darling, since you don't want to get this shot, you don't have to. You'll be exposed to polio and chickenpox and all the other diseases that will kill you. But if it's not something that you like, or you think you enjoy, it's okay. We won't do it. And you could think of other situations and circumstances or examples that I won't come up with right now, but that you wouldn't do that. But when it comes to education, parents do it. And I'm going to tell you why they do it. They do it because they don't want to spend the money to correct the issues that they caused. And the kids, it's exciting because, if you say, babe, do you want this book? Let's say the book costs $99. Babe, do you want this book? I mean, there's no greater joy than when the child says no. You're like, thank you, Lord. You didn't want to buy the book anyways because it's $99. It's different if it was a pair of shoes. right? Nice high tops. And you're like, babe, you like these shoes? You would buy it in a heartbeat, but not the education. We don't want to fix the education. Now we're going to be having some conversations because eventually I'm going to invite people to my lab and we're going to talk because, I'm here now with my theories, but what are the facts? What's really happening? And so I think parents need to apologize. We need to start apologizing to our children. That's what needs to start happening to our adult children. The ones that's walking around the house can't leave the house, can't hold on a job because we did not prepare them. Remember Ben Franklin, what he said, by failing to prepare, we are preparing to fail. And now you're seeing it because you forfeited those periods. And for those of you, when I talk about the window of opportunity and so listening to someone like myself, oh, I'd love to be able to say, oh, she's just talking nonsense. She doesn't know what she's talking about. That stuff is not real. But I love the fact that due to human growth and development, the stages of development, you see it. You see what happens when a child hits 6th grade that didn't have a strong foundation in 5th grade. I have the data, I have the scores, and you have access to them, to their public information. And so we see it. We don't like when the truth, is the truth because it's not just about hurting, but it's just realistic. It's reality. And then you're seeing it happen. You're seeing it unfold, So we need to start apologizing to them because we did not back them up. Because in another session, I guess I'll continue this session to talk about they're coming from this place. Remember, they're coming from their emotional executive center. But as an adult, we know how to reason. We know how to control this part. But a lot of parents, when you decide you want to be your child's friend, more than you want them to succeed, then you're catering to their side. So in the next part to this, we're going to even talk about the different parenting styles that allow a parent to decide to let the child fail versus succeed. And so when I come back, we're going to pick up from the necessity for us to apologize to some of these adult children and tell them we didn't take the right actions we should have. Okay, so due to the time, whatever else I need to say here, I'm just going to continue it in the next part. All right, thank you for joining. And while we're away, remember, always ponder, what is my purpose in life? Okay, because you want to make sure you fulfill your purpose in life, okay, so that you can become the best version of yourself and align with greatness. All right, until our next session, I wish you all the best, and I will see you very soon.